Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hello, I'm here. I'm Scott Bogie from Combat Sports UK, here with Charles Joyner ahead of his fight against Brandon Guest. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, really good, really good. Getting to the tail end of camp, so you just start thinking about the fight a little bit more, and yeah, just excited for it. Excited to fight in Glasgow in front of the rowdy crowd.
Exactly. And your last fight was in Newcastle. Obviously, that is a second home to you because you do stay in Sunderland. How was that experience?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like you said, it's a second home, so I felt like I got a good reception. I think I've kept saying to people, I think the Glasgow and the Newcastle crowds are the two best crowds in Cage Warriors. So, yeah, I feel lucky to be able to fight in front of those two crowds for my first two fights with the promotion. And yeah, that experience is really good. I think it all just went perfectly. Didn't take any damage. Got a good finish. Got the walk off. It looked good on camera. Yeah, couldn't have gone any better.
And I remember hearing after the fight that you were a bit surprised it was going to be due to the clinch. You thought he was just going to swing wild and you were going to be able to catch him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect him to. I think how this fight started was, I thought there was going to be a bit more of a feeling out process. He sort of was miles away from me and then just sort of ran at me throwing straight punches. And it was one of those things that, in amateur fights, in your first few amateur fights, that's how people fight. So you get used to that at the start there. But once you've had a bit more experience, I've had quite a lot of experience in kickboxing and now a bit of experience in pro MMA. You don't really get people fighting like that, and people don't spar like that either. So
yeah,
we just sort of came together quite quickly. And then, whereas maybe earlier in my MMA career, I would have tried to separate and get the range back, I felt comfortable with my grappling and my wrestling where I thought I could take him down. And then once we got to the clinch, I just unleashed one of my favorite weapons.
exactly. And how was it with the height? Because obviously you're 6'8" and he was 6'6". You're both big guys. How was that?
Yeah, it was definitely, I don't know, it was nice fighting someone my height for once. It's sort of I feel like people just call me a height bully, so they couldn't really say that for this one. But yeah, I think, I don't know, the sort of the range didn't really become a factor because we just, it was all, in the clinch and in the pocket the whole time. So I think maybe just from him being longer, it's than a usual opponent, it meant that it was a bit harder to deal with when he came rushing forward with those shots. But yeah, other than that, I didn't really get to, experience what it was like fighting another tall person because it just ended up being in the clinch the whole time. But yeah.
And obviously, after that fight, you had your shot, you called out Brandon, and you've got him this time. You were wanting it on that Manchester card. However, are you at least excited you have got him?
Yeah, definitely. I was supposed to fight him for the debut and he pulled out. And so I'm happy I get to fight him this time. I think it's a good fight. I mean, I'm a little bit offended that he thinks he can make a pro debut against me, especially when he's coming off an 18-month layoff. So I think I'm a bad person to return to the sport with, especially when you're, stepping onto a big stage and it's your debut on a professionally. I think I'm a bad person, but fair game to him. He's taken the fight, and yeah, I think it's going to be a good, entertaining fight. And probably, I wanted to be on that Manchester card because it was UFC fight week, and you always think the UFC eyes are going to be on it. But if I get another highlight finish, which I'm seeing myself getting, then the eyes will be on me anyway. And I think there's no better crowd to fight in than in front of the Glasgow crowd, other than the Newcastle crowd, of course.
Exactly. And obviously more eyes are going to be on this Glasgow card because of that welterweight tournament as well. Do you feel like that's going to bring more eyes onto it?
Yeah, I just think cage warriors in general is just always growing. Like it's, uh, even being in Australia, being from Australia, people recognize cage warriors. I think it's one of the biggest shows in the world now, and they're doing all the right things. And especially, when they do the shows in the mini arenas,
Yeah.
it feels like a smaller version of the UFC. Just the way it's run and the production and the professionalism and the level of fights as well. And of course, you have people going from there straight to the UFC. So yeah, and I think with the addition of the prize fighter, when you start throwing around big money and then people putting it all on the line for big money, then it's going to bring eyes to it as well.
And would you like to take part in a prize fighter tournament? 2 fights, one night?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for the big guys, that'd be interesting doing a tournament. It'd be like the old Pride days and the old well, I guess in the original UFC, but yeah, I mean, if you're offered big money, you wouldn't turn it down. But I mean, for me, the goal is to get to the UFC and then start making the big money there. So whatever I've got to do to get to the UFC and then make my way to the top, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, I mean, you might see tournaments happen in the UFC soon. You have Tom Aspinall. He suggests a tournament between him, Alex Pereira, John Jones, Stipe. It might not happen, but he is trying to get that idea out there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, that would be crazy. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine it happening now. I can't imagine. Like it's just one of those things where all of those guys individually have got so much pull by themselves, so they're just like, why would I risk that? I think Tom's just trying to bait John Jones into something, isn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And who after this fight, obviously there is about coming up to the end of the year. Are you wanting to get back into the cage? Cage Warriors are heading to Newcastle before the end of the year. Is that what you're going to be targeting, as long as all goes well?
Yeah, yeah, that's the plan to fight on Newcastle as well, and then end the year with 3 wins and set myself up for to be in a good position for next year. I'll be 5-1 then, and I think just finishing people the way I'm finishing them. I think the UFC will come knocking then. But yeah, just got to keep winning fights and winning in an entertaining way. I mean, you know, even see on the Contender Series, you get people winning like that Finney, I think his name's
Yeah,
Finney,
Torres
on
Finney.
during yeah, he obviously won and he beat a good guy in Cam Ralston, a fellow Australian, but he didn't get the contract, and that was his second time on Contender Series. So you just got to be winning in exciting ways, I think, and just and be something that just be inevitable, be someone that can't be denied by the UFC. So yeah.
And you definitely are doing that. Your 3 wins, one defeat. All 3 wins have come by way of first round stoppage. Do you feel like you are proving that you are this exciting fighter and you are able to get eyes on you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think even after the last Cage Warriors fight, they were promoting me and posting me, and um, they're not going to do that if you've just held someone down for
Yeah.
3 rounds, or if you've just tried to move around and just try and outpoint a decision. People want to see violence, and people want to see people hit the deck, and whenever I fight, that's what happens. So yeah, I think the eyes are just going to keep coming on me each fight I have, there'll be more, and then, like I said, it'll just be inevitable that I get there.
And I heard you were a bit surprised in that last fight when they were calling you out in the octagon and they said Sydney, Australia. You got a bigger crowd for that rather than Sunderland.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like everyone just loves Australians, and then obviously being in Newcastle, if it says fighting out of Sunderland, I'm surprised. I probably would have got booed for that, really. But yeah, I think it'll be the same for this card in Scotland. I mean, I think the Australian and the Scottish have a good little bit of camaraderie. So yeah, I think I'll get the same sort of reception.
Well, that sounds great. And how does a normal training week look like to you? Do you have certain days for certain stuff each week, or do you just plan 1 week at a time?
Yeah, it's pretty regimented. I train at TFT the whole time, so I follow the schedule that we've got there, and then I do some pads with Jamie Bates, who's a world class kickboxer from this area. He fought on Glory, and he's an ISCA world champion. And then the only thing that's different sometimes is when you get the sparring in, because sometimes you'll spar with people from different gyms, or you'll travel to spar. So that's something that can change, but otherwise it's pretty regimented. I like it being pretty regimented because then I feel like my body knows what to expect. I can plan around it a bit better. I know when I can get my rest. So I feel like a sort of schedule that is all over the place doesn't really suit me. Yeah.
And like you're saying, you're with TNT. How has that been? Obviously, the head coach is things like Andrew Fisher. How has that
Yeah.
been?
Yeah, really, really good. I think as soon as I started training there, I realized that Fisher was a world class coach and could get the best out of me. And I think he's just so good at recognizing people's different styles and how to develop them and what they need, and he's not scared to break it back down to the fundamentals. Even if experienced people step into the gym, he'll I had a fair bit of experience kickboxing, fought for world titles, but he wasn't afraid to tell me where he thought I could improve, and the yeah, and tell me how it is, which I think is what you need. But then he also, it's never stupid training. Every
Yeah.
day's a school day. We're learning every day. So I think it's the perfect match for me. And I think that's what's important, really.
And you've also got a lot of big names training at the team as well. You have Phil Cage Warriors fighter, I think Milad Ahadi. You also have
Yeah.
UFC fighter Mick Perkin and the KSW heavyweight champion Phil DeFries. How
Yeah.
how have that been being able to spar with this type of level?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it just gives you the confidence. There's Justin Burlinson, James Hendon in there as well.
Yeah.
Paul Elliott, who's on one championship. So we've got loads of big guys that are at a high level, and it just gives you the confidence that if you're training with them every day and you're getting good work with them, and for me, it's improving the grappling all the time, and I feel like my grappling's improving with them, and then when I go to spar different people, and in the fights, it feels a lot easier than training with them. So I think it gives you that confidence that you're doing the right things and that you're getting the most out of your training. And then obviously it gives you the confidence in the coach that he's getting people to win on these big stages as well.
And you came over to England from Australia down at the time of lockdown during the coronavirus. What was it that made you get up, leave Australia for the UK?
Yeah, it was basically just the lockdown really. And we Australia went through a period. We had a lockdown at the very start for about 8 weeks, and everything opened up, and we're open for about a year. Fights started happening, people were training, and then we just got hit suddenly with this other lockdown, and I just had no idea when it was going to end. And obviously, being a fighter, you just want to be constantly. There's a lot of uncertainty, so we didn't know really what was going to happen in Australia because it was extremely strict. And then because I got a British passport, I knew I could come over here. And yeah, it was just that. I just thought that the UK was open, that people were having fights over here. So I just made the leap to move, and then started training MMA, started fighting kickboxing over here at first, and then moved to TFT. And yeah, just transitioned to MMA completely, which I always thought I would do in Australia, but I think moving over here just gave me that freedom to feel like I could just go for something a little bit different as well.
Yeah. And what was it that got you into, well, firstly, the kickboxing and then moving that from kickboxing to MMA?
I mean, it was a bit of a cliched answer these days, but it was the rise of Conor McGregor really that got me training, and I just like the way that he spoke and he carried himself, and then obviously the performances he was putting in, and then when he knocked out Aldo in 13 seconds, I think that was the one that really sort of pushed me to start training, and I was fighting shortly after, and I just, you know, I'd never trained before. I'd never done any sort of martial arts training. I mean, I did karate when I was little, but that doesn't really count. And yeah, I think I picked it up just because my frame. It was just kickboxing was perfect for me, and then I was doing well in kickboxing. I'd say I became the best in Australia. No one really wanted to fight me. I came over here, beat some of the best over here, fought for world titles overseas, and at the same time I was training MMA. So it was MMA was always the goal that and I knew that I was always going to progress to that eventually. So I was just lucky that I came across TFT, because I think it's just, I wouldn't want to train anywhere else. Really, it's the I think Fish is one of the best coaches in the world, and I think it doesn't get the gym doesn't get the respect it deserves because it's in the Northeast. But I think sooner or later people will start to realize how good it is.
Exactly. And like we did suggest earlier, you are wanting to fight in that Newcastle card, as long as all goes well in this fight. Is there anyone you're wanting to see, or are you going to wait till after this fight before you call out anyone?
I've not really got anyone in mind, really. Yeah, I think I just focusing on this fight for now, and then maybe when it comes to the interview afterwards, I'll have a bit of inspiration and someone will come to mind. But as long as there's someone in front of me in Newcastle, I'll be happy. But obviously, like we say, we got to focus on the Glasgow fight first. Focus on Brandon Guest, because he's not going to be an easy fight. But I'm confident that I'm going to do damage to him and get him out of there.
And also, one of the great things about the UK is that you can get to all the cities very, very quickly. However, when are you thinking about heading up to Glasgow? Is it on the weigh-in day, or are you thinking about coming up any day before?
I was actually up there last weekend to do some sparring, and went to go and look at the Brayhead Arena, just had a look outside because I think they were setting something up. I don't know if I'm not sure if it was for Cage Warriors or not, but so but so I sort of familiarized myself with the area a little bit, and then I'll just come up the day before the weigh-in during on fight week, so I can just do my weight cut and then sort myself out. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. And I wish you the best of luck for your upcoming fight. I know you're going to put on a spectacular performance. I'm going to
Thank
give
you.
you the final word. Anyone you're wanting to shout out, anything else you're wanting to add?
Yeah, no, just obviously thanks to my team, TFT over here, my team in Australia, Evolution Gym and Ethos Performance. And then yeah, shout out to my girlfriend Simone, who looks out for me. And my mum's visiting over from Australia at the moment, so shout out mum as well. And then yeah, tune in for the fight. It's guaranteed violence. That's for sure. Look out for the body shot.
Exactly. If you're in the Glasgow area around the 7th of September, make sure you get tickets. Cage Warriors put on fantastic shows. If you aren't able to attend, it will be on the UFC Fight Pass. You can go over and stream it live. Thank you, Charles, for coming on.
All good. Cheers for having me.